In the podcast Trigonometry, the billionaire Peter Thiel labels wokeness as an extreme form of Christianity. He's not alone in this sentiment either. Recently, I've seen many critics of Christianity argue that this religion leads to wokeness, or is actually woke at its core. You also have progressive Christians who view wokeness as critical to their faith and their political output. But is Christianity woke? Must Christians become progressive? No, I say. Christianity transcends political characterization, offers a different value system to wokeness, is often targeted by progressive activists, and you cannot have any form of Christianity without Christ being the Son of God. In this video, I argue that Christianity is not in fact woke, but it is not also necessarily anti-woke either. The unique aspects of Christianity, which there are many, do not necessarily result in progressive ideology. There are woke Christians and woke interpretations of the New Testament, but this reality doesn't make Christianity a certain political flavour moored in contemporary history. Overall, I want to encourage us to break away from the desire to categorise such a rich and ancient religion with very recent terminology. Stick around to the end as I articulate why this prominent myth that Christianity is woke exists. But first, disclaimers. 1. The categories of Christian and woke often suffer from a no true Scotsman fallacy. Society has very rigid ideas of what Christianity and wokeness truly look like. The retort, "You are not really Christian," or "woke if you do this," is prominent, and sadly, this hinders discussion. That's why I will interpret Christianity and wokeness based off on how they exist, rather than their original intentions or any idealism about what Christianity or wokeness should or could look like. I am not here to promote an alternative approach to Christianity or wokeness either. That's why I've put a focus on self-identification. My understanding of Christianity and wokeness comes out of those who consider themselves Christian or progressive leftists on social issues. This is how I avoid essentializing or casting such a broad and meaningless net for what counts as Christian and what doesn't. While woke isn't really a popular term for self-identification today, it is interchangeable here with progressive leftism, particularly on cultural issues like race, gender, immigration status, refugee, and sexuality. That said, the woke also take their worldview in a very dogmatic way. Hence, why I stress that not every leftist is woke, and overall, the woke are just a section of left-wing ideology. Finally, I encourage you to not overthink about the origins of wokeness. Too often in these discussions, there's a desire to prove that wokeness originated in a certain philosopher, country, religion, or era. I have seen wokeness blame on Protestants, Catholics, Hegel, the French revolutionaries, and even the medieval Cathars. Historical discussions are always good, and I encourage them. I do, after all, draw on history, but ultimately, I am interested in wokeism and Christianity as they exist today. If you want a detailed uncovering about the secrets behind wokeness and the inner mechanics of the woke worldview, this is not the video for you. But let's begin. I'm Madeleine Rose Jones, and I study history, literature, and culture. Welcome to Snowy Fictions. Christianity transcends political characterization. Christian history spans thousands of years, and as a world religion, Christianity is present in a diverse range of cultures, languages, and ethnicities. Whether we are discussing ancient, medieval, or modern history, Christianity has taken many shapes, as well as boasting a wonderful intellectual tradition, rich in debate and difference. Can we really fit Christianity in such a contemporary box? It is just strange to expect a religion with such a rich and complex history to fit neatly into our political categories. That's why I argue that Christianity transcends political characterization. It's too diverse, global, and dynamic to submit meekly into our woke and anti-woke boxes. Christianity is neither. My next points question whether Christianity is woke at all, but please, I have no desire to argue that Christianity is actively anti-woke. By portraying Christianity as neither anti-woke or woke, we can appreciate the dynamic and diverse realities of Christianity not only today, but how it has existed throughout time. This is true whether it is Christianity in Greek Cappadocia during late antiquity or trying to understand the motivations of a Baptist church in Central America. Christianity has always transcended national art and cultural classifications. No single political movement, aesthetic, or ethnicity has a monopoly over Christianity. I urge us all to see Christianity within a world history framework with all the debate and difference this brings. Armenian Christians shouldn't be confused with Bulgarian Orthodox Christians. As I have stated, taking a historical view of Christianity as opposed to an incredibly idealistic one allows us to appreciate the diversity and nuance within Christianity. I understand the temptation to find common ground with the religion you practice and your political behaviours. If you are a Christian, it makes sense to want to find representation in politics, whether it is on the left or the right. The problem comes with comparing our current political moments and trends to a very historical and broad process of Christianization. You may argue wokeness is a selective interpretation or path taken by Christians, but you cannot argue all Christians have to or will take it. Typically, those who argue wokeness is an extreme form of Christianity have very, very rigid ideas of what being Christian means. This can come from personal experience with Christians, but it usually stems from the Gospels and how Jesus is represented by not only Christianity, but by popular culture. To be honest, I understand why this happens. Christians often rationalize their behaviors, whether who they vote for or their views on a contentious social matter, as being Christian. After all, a huge part of living a Christian life is identity. I'm not against any of this, of course, but I can see how this created the misconception we now have that being Christian means fitting a certain stereotype. A minor point, but a very important one, is to understand that those who proclaim to represent Christianity, like charities and NGOs who support illegal immigrants, do not have a monopoly over Christian ideas, iconography, or what being Christian means. I urge you to not allow the present day to dictate your view on what being Christian means. As I've stated, Christian history spans thousands of years, and as a world religion, is present in a diverse range of not only cultures, but philosophical traditions. Anyone making serious commentary on religion needs to not resort to simplifications, but understand the internal diversity within a religion. Christianity offers a different value system to wokeness. When we consider Christian values and what they are, it is tempting to view them as a proto-wokeness, or as fitting with a progressive worldview. The evidence for such claims usually stems from the Sermon on the Mount, Christ's teachings and actions, as well as many interpretations of calls to love and brotherhood among men. And it's true, Christianity asks more from us, and it is not content with mere animalistic behaviour. That's why many Christians, especially Catholics, emphasize justice in their daily lives, and moral thinking on war and punishment is usually composed with a desire to align Christian morality with action. Yet Christians have always varied and debated on how best to do that. In the Eastern Roman Empire, theologians reached vastly different conclusions on how best to reconcile warfare with Christ. This was then followed by iconoclasm, where icons were destroyed. While eventually defeated, the iconoclastic saga in Byzantium speaks to the internal dynamics within Christianity. Simply, just because two people are Christian doesn't mean they'll agree on everything. But Christianity does have distinct values, however. Sacrifice, mercy, justice, respect, faith in God, to name a few. I can see how these may lead to a woke worldview, but I cannot see how these automatically lead to wokeness. A Christian who values respect and justice may find the woke worldview and approach leading to neither. Again, it's worth mentioning that most Westerners are not woke at all. It's hard to take that Christianity equates to woke thesis seriously when over 1,000 years of Christian supremacy only results in a small minority of the West being woke. That said, exploring conceptions about Christianity are also important. Christianity has ethnic components, but a person's ethnicity will never bar them from becoming a Christian. In a similar vein to Islam, Christianity's monotheism and mission has created the impression of a religion where ethnicity doesn't matter at all and is more concerned with worldly affairs. Julian the Apostate's critique of Christianity is certainly worth considering too. Writing in Greek, Julian bemoans how Christians do not fit in neatly into Jewish or Greek categories. This ties in nicely with Christ's word about neither Jew nor Greek. To be clear, Christianity does not deny identity, and ethnicity doesn't magically disappear when Christians come together. A look through art history and liturgy reveals that ethnicity and culture are useful when Christianity manifests itself. In fact, Christianity can have many folk aspects, as one finds in Catholic visual culture from Spain, Austria, and Mexico. Far from suppressing ethnicity, Christianity reveals ethnicity. It's just never a barrier. Interpreting Christianity's openness for adherents of any race to mean wokeness is just uncharitable. In addition, Christianity, especially the Roman Catholic Church, which I speak of now, is often called globalized and cosmopolitan. This isn't without reason. The term Catholic comes from Greek, which means universal, and it's true Catholics see their church as the one true church, and the Pope has authority from St. Peter. Denying the universalist tendencies of Christianity, especially Catholicism, is foolish. But let's not forget history. Cosmopolitanism and universalism aren't necessarily woke. Progressive activists do not have a monopoly over these concepts and never will. I'd argue they also meant different things in antiquity and the Middle Ages, and thus shouldn't be conflated with neoliberalism, global activism, and woke efforts in modern era. To better understand ancient globalism, we turn to two writers, Herodotus, a historian, and Strabo, a geographer, to simplify their roles. Both have proved critical sources for Greek perspectives on the Mediterranean and the steppes, with cultures as diverse as the Scythians to the Persians. These Greeks travel, they tell stories and collect information, but neither apologize for being Greeks, and they take great pride in being that way, even as so far to assert superiority. It's very hard to find tracks for equality among races and men in either Herodotus or Strabo. Neither were Christian, of course, but were crucial in shaping the Hellenic worldview about the world, which Christians eventually adopted. It is possible to embrace a cosmopolitanism and internationalism without being woke. The idea Christianity means a muzzling of ethnicity and identity is ludicrous. In Galatians 3:8, there is neither Jew nor Gentile, neither slave nor free, nor is there male or female, for you are all the one in Jesus Christ, as per the New International Version. Just as Christianity doesn't deny the differences between men and women, it doesn't deny the existence of ethnicity either. A read of Galatians 3 shows us the wider context. St. Paul is responding to the old covenant between Jews and God. There's a problem with using biblical verses to comment on contemporary affairs to win political arguments. We cannot divorce Christianity from its historical, linguistic, and social context. Progressive and woke ideology does not give equal moral weight to all. Moral action is filtered through identity, which we all saw in Black Lives Matter, positive discrimination in Western universities, numerous diversity initiatives, and quotas for gender and race. This is best shown in the leftist principle of equity, which really means equality of outcome, not opportunity. But it is impossible to get equality of outcome without favouritism, which is why the UK universities have specific race-based scholarships, whether provided by charities, the university, or the UK government. Creating an equitable society requires special treatment and opportunities, hence the diversity, equality and inclusion initiatives done by corporations, schools and civil servants. Yet the sickest aspect of this is the progressive view that the moral character behind an action shifts with the identity. In the past month or so, the United Kingdom has seen significant riots and civil disorder after the tragic murder of 3 young girls in Southport, England. The response has been swift, with many harsh arrests for the dissenters and even those who posted on social media. As many have pointed out, these individuals have endured a harsher treatment than actual rapists and gangsters. Hence the two-tier Kia nickname. Keep in mind that two-tier policing is not new to the UK. The The travesties with the Pakistani Muslim gangs raping, torturing and murdering English children and women are well known. This has gone on for decades, and the cover-up of these crimes and the fact they continue really does boil down to contempt for whites, the English and the working class. When I was a book blogger, I covered the tragic story of a grooming gang survivor, Kate Elysia, who bravely wrote a memoir of her experiences being raped and abused in Northern England. She described her ordeal as anti-white racism, but the publisher made her take it out. This was in 2019, and a year later, publishers would unleash countless books about anti-black and anti-Asian racism. Wokeness truly prefers some victims over others. Playing favourites, however, doesn't exist in Christianity. The moral expectations put forth are expected to be followed by everyone, regardless of their sex or race. We all will face judgment, and none of us are getting off easy because of any identity characteristics we may have. St. Paul is correct in framing Christianity and Christ for everyone. Christians do this without ever denying identity or difference, or by permitting different treatment. Throughout medieval Christendom, ethnicity continues to play a role, with the Byzantine historian and princess Anna Comnene calling the Latin West Crusaders barbarians. We also see ethnicity critical in the Anglo-French Wars, the treatment of Jewish minorities in Central Europe, how Slavic people are talked about, and the eventual conversion of the pagans in the Baltic regions. The progressive concern for equity, though, is absent. Christian morality emphasizes charity, temperaments, mercy, humility, respect, truth, and loyalty. The cardinal virtues also include prudence and fortitude. Again, I can accept that progressive Christians may interpret this to align well with their activism, but that's just one interpretation of historical Christian ethics, and it is certainly not the only one. Christianity is often a target by woke activists. I've stressed so far that there are woke Christians, but not all Christians are woke. I'll admit, a reason why I push back on the Christianity is woke is because of how woke activists view Christianity and, in some circumstances, treat Christians. To clarify, it is possible to be a Christian and view yourself and your principles through a progressive prism. As stated earlier, wokeness isn't just a set of ideas, but an approach to enacting them and how one faces opposition. A progressive may lean towards a feminist approach to theology, but if he or she is intellectually curious, open to disagreement, and doesn't treat criticism as warfare, I wouldn't classify them as woke in the context of this video. Wokeness is certainly not friendly towards conservative Christians or any Christian who disagrees with them. The best example is the cancel culture phenomenon, where many Christians were cancelled, shut from employment, sued and slandered for their own political views. A good example comes from my own country, Australia, where a previous banking executive was shoved out of an AFL position due to his teachings at the local Baptist church. In the United Kingdom, an Anglican was fired for refusing to use his students' preferred pronouns. Wokeness, whether existing in law or by activists, is utterly intolerant of disagreement or certain lifestyles. Whether the person being criticised is Christian is irrelevant. The woke approach to politics has no room for mercy, grace, or empathy. It is cutthroat, as many Christians can attest to after encountering far-left and progressive activists. Christianity is only accepted by them if it is submissive and follows their whims. I do not intend to comment on theology, or to position there is a correct way of being Christian. These benchmarks can really plague our understanding of history and Christianity as it exists today. But it is just true. Wokeness has, since its inception, been incredibly hostile to conservative Christians. It goes without saying that the woke ideology never really focuses on Christ or Christian teachings, nor is it technically a Christian movement. In fact, I'd call wokeism quite secular and pluralist. The emphasis on religious tolerance, whether it is Muslims, paganism, or Hinduism, distinguishes it from a Christian cosmological view of the world. Today, Christianity is more represented on the right than the left, at least in the Anglosphere. Then, there's the issue of abortion and gay marriage, where the woke are brutal and cutthroat to any Christian who disagrees, with their calls to separate church from politics. In my country, Christians who are conservative are severely villainized by woke activists. with the best example probably being Tony Abbott, a former Prime Minister. When we discuss whether something is Christian or not, surely the experience of practicing Christians is important. There's always more to a religion than teachings or scripture. The behaviour, experience, and identity of its adherents is also relevant if Christians are overwhelmingly having hostile encounters with woke, then that brings into question whether woke is truly Christian. How a people and culture are treated is relevant in our understanding of what something truly is, and in this case, it is Christianity. Peter Thiel's assessment of woke being an extreme form of Christianity is unsatisfying because he only sees a narrow part of both the woke and the Christians. There is no Christianity without Christ. In many videos, I have stressed that all religions, especially Christianity, evolve and change over time, and I stand by that. But to add some nuance, Christianity, like Zoroastrianism, Judaism, and Islam, still have an everlasting core or an essence, which doesn't really change. Think of it like the Milky Way galaxy, where planets orbit around the sun. The planets, which may include people, language, culture, land, and philosophy, may change, but the core tenets of a faith will continue to shine. Such is especially the case for Christianity. So, what is the core of Christianity? This is debated among Christians, and I've heard varying perspectives over time, some specific on the denominational level. Some answers include the Trinity, the Gospels, the whole biblical canon, or Jesus Christ. Which one is correct? Well, I'll leave that up to you. But there is no Christianity without Christ. If wokeness is truly Christian, we have to ask ourselves, where is Christ? Christianity accepts Christ as the Son of God. Does progressive ideology? My interpretation of the woke is that they are fundamentally pluralist, secular, and dismissive of organized Christianity. Many woke activists may accept the existence of Christ, but it's usually in a "he was a Palestinian refugee" sense. Christ is used to win political brownie points and to win arguments. The woke and progressive activists are not engaged enough with Christ on a whole to really count as a Christian movement. As said earlier, I accept that there are progressive and woke Christians, as well as progressive readings of Christian scripture, theology, and history. What I refute is the assumption put forward by Peter Thiel that wokeness is an extreme form of Christianity. Many progressive Christians, as well as secular types, will quote sections of the New Testament to convince others that wokeness aligns with Christianity. The problem is that Christianity has existed for over 2,000 years. Wokeness is very, 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 very new by comparison. If wokeness is intrinsically Christian, why didn't it appear earlier? We have outstanding proof of Christianity existing and thriving without wokeness. I am not convinced Christianity needs wokeness to continue to exist. What it does need is Christ. The problem in our contemporary era is that so many things and movements are labelled as Christian, and it's usually for moralistic and behavioural reasons rather than metaphysical principles. We're told accepting refugees is Christian, and so is supporting racial justice. But to Christians, Christ is more than a teacher of moral wisdom. He is the Son of God, who was born of the Virgin Mary and was resurrected after being crucified on the cross. The Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. There is no Christianity without this. When studying religion, sure, it's important to avoid essentializing or simplifying religions down to bullet points. I get that. But having boundaries as to what we call Christian is important to understanding not just Christian history, but Christianity as a whole. I've mentioned Tom Holland's book Dominion several times on this channel. For those unfamiliar with Dominion, Holland argues that our current woke and social justice moments, as well as secular humanism and the music festival Woodstock, have roots in Christianity. Yet Holland is very clear in the introduction of Dominion that he is only referencing a specific type and interpretation of Christianity, namely the liberalised Anglo-Protestant type. Holland wisely doesn't argue Christianity would always result in progressive ideology or that all roads lead to wokery. The history he draws on, therefore, is just one part of a larger painting. Overall, wokeness isn't automatically Christian, and Christianity isn't automatically woke. For this to be the case, Christianity would have to be viewed in a very rigid and singular way. Much of the church's beauty and power will vanish too. That's why it is important to emphasize the diversity of thought within Christian history and the various philosophical schools, debates, and communities. Wokeness, or progressive ideology, is singular and one-sided. Theological disputes also exist among Christians. In late antiquity, various councils debated Christology, the study of Christ, and his human as well as his divine nature. Many approaches to Christianity certainly existed, one being Arianism. I must stress that admitting Christianity has a core doesn't negate the vast histories of debate and difference in ancient, medieval, and modern Christendom. But I really want us to consider closely where Christ is in what we label Christian. Quoting Bible verses out of context will not cut it, nor will asking, what will Jesus do, when we encounter genuine opposition to our political beliefs and behaviours. It's no secret by this stage. I am very skeptical of the New Age hippie view of Christ many have. Progressive activists are being manipulative when they act as if they have a monopoly over the true Christianity and meaning of Christ. They don't. And we must view Christianity outside a woke or an anti-woke framework. Why this myth exists. The myth of Christianity equating wokeness exists for several reasons, with the main one being the behaviour of Christians in the contemporary era and the appeal many have towards wokeness. The best example, in an Anglosphere context, is probably the Archbishop of Canterbury in the Church of England. There is also James Martin, a Roman Catholic priest in the Society of Jesus. To both, Christianity and woke ideology go together, as living a Christian life means being woke. But, as I have hopefully proved with this video, this is just one path, one interpretation of Christianity. Christians are not compelled or forced into wokeness at all. They are certainly not made to act like woke activists with intolerant strategies. Christianity does tell us to help the poor and illuminates the importance of charity. And sure, woke activists can align their behaviour with this principle, but so can non-woke activists. You absolutely do not have to be woke to care about others, to yearn for justice, to follow Christ. The woke do not have a monopoly over these traits. Another reason, while less common, is the perception of ancient and medieval Christians being just as iconoclastic and barbaric as the woke. The symbolism of the woke smashing statues mirrors the many apparent attacks on the classical world by Christians. You see this thesis more by non-woke neo-pagans, in my experience, as they frame Christianity as an alien force destroying a prosperous civilization with its weird morality and metaphysics. A book which they reference quite often is The Darkening Age by Nixey to make their case. To be blunt, I have intense problems with Nixey's writing and arguments, and so do many historians of late antiquity and early Christianity. It's riddled with generalizations, outdated historiography, and binary thinking between Christianity and the classical world. For more references and clarifications, my video about Louise Perry and paganism is well worth watching. I'll also post History for Atheists review on Nixey's work, and I highly encourage reading it. It's also hard to take the claim of Christianity by neo-pagans being woke seriously, as they often overemphasize the so-called destruction of the classical world and ignore the actual attempts by Christians to reconcile or connect with it. As said earlier, quoting biblical texts out of context and to win political arguments isn't particularly rigorous. If you are a neo-pagan watching this, I highly encourage you to be critical about what you read and hear about early Christianity. Ask yourself, what primary sources have informed these conclusions? Have they been analysed well? What do previous and current historians publishing in peer-reviewed journals say about this? Whilst I try to be positive on this channel to everyone, as well as charitable when I can, it's really hard when neo-pagans have a very terrible conception of late antiquity and are clearly biased against anything remotely Christian. I say this as someone who has enjoyed the scholarship and perspective on Christian topics and history by non-Christians. Again, not everyone in the neo-pagan sphere does this. I acknowledge that, and I appreciate it. There's no reason why we can't all reach a nuanced conclusion about Christianity. Conclusion. There's much to say about Christianity today in the West. While seemingly in decline, there is still so much commentary and discussion about Christianity, which some I clearly take issue with. I created this video not to argue that Christianity is anti-woke, but to hopefully challenge Peter Thiel's conception of Christianity being at its core woke. Also, I wanted to empower Christians with the knowledge that they are under no obligation whatsoever to be woke or to act in woke ways. As you can probably tell by my channel, I do not have a favourable view on wokeness. While I acknowledge woke Christians exist, they are certainly not the only ones. But back to you. What are your thoughts on Christianity and wokeness? Comment below. I'd love to know your thoughts and start a discussion. Subscribe for frequent videos on history, literature and culture. I also have a mailing list, a blog, and creative writing classes, all links below. Thanks for watching, and I will see you soon. Goodbye.